Oh, it's good. It's good. No, we do want to hear from Jess, and she has a ton of great content, so I appreciate you keeping us on time very much. Welcome, everybody, back to the Wayfinding series, where we invite local creative professionals to tell us a little bit about their journey to a successful creative life and all the twists and turns involved in that path. We're really happy to have with us today, as part of our Wayfinding series, one of our very own faculty members today presenting. So Jess Moore currently teaches in our Foundations department. She brings to that position 20 years working as a graphic designer and holds an MFA in integrated design. Jess's artwork honors her love for the Rocky Mountain West. She uses a mix of new technology and analog techniques to construct layered landscapes of laser cut and stained wood. Previously, Jess worked for professional service firms, and after spending 8 weeks nestled at a camp in Pike National Forest in the summer of 2015, she launched her own business with the goal of engaging her passion for the mountains and never ever returning to a corporate office again. In today's presentation, she's going to share some advice and insights into how her experiences as an artist and designer have allowed her to turn a passion into a productive and viable business. Please welcome Jess Moore.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming by. So I have my own business, Simple and Sylvan, as Gretchen mentioned. I'm gonna talk a little bit about my path, and I'm also gonna talk about pricing your work for the different environments where I'm selling my work. So I sell at fine art shows and wholesale. So we're gonna get a little bit into some math. I also was an art student, so I understand, but I won't make it, there's no calculus here, don't worry. So with that said, topics that we're going to cover: meeting Jess, pricing, exploration into retail, art shows and juries, and wholesale products. I want to talk a little bit about your business. Potentially, this could be a route for anyone here on campus. And so there's some fundamentals that I'll cover. And I'm going to try to talk fast. I don't know if we'll get to copyright and trademark. I am absolutely willing to stay later, or I am reachable by email, jmoore@rmcad.edu. So don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, about what I am going to cover today, because I'm going to talk about quite a few things. So I moved from one state obsessed with its state flag to another. I am a native Marylander, and we love our flag, and so do Coloradans. I went to University of Baltimore for grad school. But I came to Colorado for vacation and fell in love. I fell in love with the mountains, and I had to get here. So prior to getting here, I worked as a graphic designer in an accounting firm in Maryland. When I arrived, I was a graphic designer at law firm, so it translated professional service-wise. And so this is a little bit of the graphic design work that I had been doing. But then I was laid off. I was laid off one too many times in the corporate world, and I went to Girl Scout camp. I was the camp photographer for 8 weeks in Pike National Forest, and I captured the joy of camp. And that's Pikes Peak right there in the background. And it really, being outside for 8 hours a day or more, really clicked something inside me. I did not want to go back into a corporate office, and I started becoming inspired with my natural surroundings. So I do laser cut layered wood pieces for my business. So it's tactile, it's live and in person up here if anybody wants to come and check it out later. I've also started knitting and incorporating textiles in my pieces. So it's just been a wonderful opening for me rather than working on corporate pieces. I am fully passionate about graphic design. I had been teaching graphic design at other local schools. I'm working in fundamentals here. And let's see what we have next, my lifestyle. So I am a full-time RVer now. I, started creating art here in Denver and was traveling to art shows, and I really wanted to be in the mountains. And so I was able to combine living in my own house that rolls, going to the art shows, and it saves on paying rent and then going to shows out of town to sleep in hotel rooms. I get to sleep in my own bed. So that really just is a phenomenal piece of my puzzle. And I get to be in the mountains, and then I get to come back here to Denver and interact with students and the community. What I do in the winter is that I am not a fan of frozen pipes. So last week when the numbers dropped, the pipes were not doing so well. So last year I decided to go and volunteer at a national park. So I was down in southeast Arizona, and this year I was accepted to work in the visitor center for Big Bend. So I am thrilled. This is me, this is a cave. We did a tour with a group down there, and I had a fear of caves and I overcame it. So I'm also really engaged and passionate about our creative community here in Colorado. So I served as president for AIGA Colorado for 2 years. I believe that no matter what your industry is, find your people. Your people are going to be there. They're going to bolster you. The AIGA student chapter here meets out on Monday afternoons. So harness that creative community. I came to Colorado without a job or a home, and within 3 years I was able to really engage with my creative community, and here we are celebrating. So do take a look at that. Okay, so pausing from that crazy little story about me living my life on the road making art, I really had a struggle with pricing my work. I was working as a graphic designer, so I knew how to price my hourly rate. I knew how to talk to clients to get them what they wanted, but the art making piece was a totally different ballgame. So I started, doing craft shows at first, and then I would investigate these juried shows, and we're going to talk about a little bit about each one of those pieces. So there's 2 ways to potentially sell your work. One would be retail, you selling to one customer, or you selling your piece wholesale, where you sell a lot of your pieces to one person who then resells your work. One of the ways to kind of define that is if you have a product that can be replicatable. And if you don't, that's totally okay. That in the industry it's called one of a kind, or OOAK, which thinking about metalsmithing or creating one painting, certainly you could create a print of that painting, but thinking what type of work do you do that can be potentially priced a certain way. And one thing that I learned along the way is that my retail prices need to be based off of my wholesale prices so that I can make some money. And I'm going to dive into those a little bit. So here's where the math starts to come in. What are the costs of your goods sold? Thinking about your materials. I'm going to use, and I know who I'm talking to, I'm going to use a beaded necklace as an example as we go through the numbers a little bit. It is what it is. It's something that we can kind of get in our mind. You want to think about how much those items cost. You want to think about your time that it takes to produce that object. And I know that we don't have to think about it now, we're art students, but certainly rent is something that we have to worry about, but is there a part of your living space that is maybe your studio? What is the rent on that square footage? You certainly pay electricity, and when you have a street legal business, insurance is one of those things that we all have to deal with. So how much will this item cost to break even? So here's the numbers. Thinking about our beaded necklace, I know that it would take us 15 minutes to create that beaded necklace. We're working really fast. We're really nimble at stringing those beads on some rope or wire or macrame thread. So you want to pay yourself. That's number one. You need to pay yourself. So if we're paying ourselves $20 an hour, we can make 4 per hour. So that's not hard math, right guys? We got this. So it takes $5 to make one of those items. So that's our first piece of the puzzle. Here's those cost of those goods. So we have 106 beads at 12 cents per bead, making that $12.67 for our cost of goods for the beads. Cord, how much cord? So certainly you can buy like a nice long big 100 yards and break that down a little bit per inch. So our total cost of goods is $13.03. An easy way to think about your overhead, that insurance, that rent, the electricity, would be 10% of that, so about $4. I bring this up now because it's a perfect time to start thinking about it as you move on. Sure, like we all need a little cash every now and then. It doesn't hurt to say like, I have this painting for sale and it's $20. Great, $20 is a wonderful thing, but this will help start us being successful after graduation. So more of that math, and it's not fuzzy math. So here's our total cost for our necklace. It's called the break-even price is $22.03. In retail and in wholesale, the term is called Keystone or Keystone pricing when you start to think about a profit. When you're selling wholesale, you are selling a quantity, a larger quantity to one person versus that one-on-one sale if you're in an art booth. So you don't have to rent the art booth. You don't have to stand there for hours to sell your own work. Somebody else is going to do that for you with wholesale. So you want to think about your ability to make a profit at wholesale and then a profit at your retail cost. So keystoning is a formula to get us there. So our break-even price would be 2 times, so it was that 22.0 whatever, times 2 is going to be that wholesale price. That way you are making money. It's in the bank, it's twice as much as those cost of goods and your time and overhead. If I'm selling one-on-one to a person in my booth, that's going to be the retail price. So that's 2 times wholesale price. So it's a good little formula to make sure that you're getting the right amount for your work. We artists undercut ourselves a lot. So it's really important to really start to figure out how much time does it really take for you to make something. We are learning. You might have taken a class freshman year in drawing, and then when you've gotten to your junior year, it might take you a lot less time to get to that finished piece. When you've been in your career for 5 years, your times are going to change, but something to keep in mind as you move forward. And don't undersell yourself. Your time is definitely worth something. So here's that break-even price for the necklace, the Keystone price for wholesale, and then retail. So that beaded necklace we would sell at the booth for $88. If I were selling 10 of them to one of our local stores, for them to sell, we would sell them at the whole sale price of $44 each. They're going to turn around and mark it up to $88 as well, so that they can pay for their employees, pay for the bags that they pack it in when they sell it. They also have to pay rent. So that's where everything is kind of padded for everyone to make money. That's the goal, right? So how to really think about whether your product might work. You have to make the decision on how much of a margin is going to work for you. Is it something that you can wiggle on? Is it something that you can change your price with? You might not think that somebody would buy that beaded necklace for $88, but maybe you're not your target market. Maybe you're not the person who you're making art for, which sounds like a really interesting concept, but sometimes you might not be your target market. Is there something that you can do to change the product so that it is cheaper? Are there different beads that you could buy? Could you buy a lot more so that the price comes down when you buy at a quantity? So you become a wholesale buyer for the beads. Rent. Can you rent a cheaper place? Whatever that might mean to you, so that you would cut down on that overhead. Do you move to the mountains? Do you move into an RV? All options to think about how you can wiggle that potential price for that object. So you're selling retail at an art show or a craft booth. You definitely don't want to undercut the shops that you're not really in competition with them. So you each want to make sure that you're both selling that beaded necklace at the same price. But you now have to consider when you do shows that there are booth fees and there are jury fees. So a typical application to a jury to art show is $35. And then a typical booth, which is a 10 by 10 foot space, can range from $150 to $350 in the area. Those are really good prices. There are some shows that are $500 for your booth, and that would include the weekend, Saturday, Sunday. Sometimes juried shows are Friday through Sunday. But so you're making, when you have your Keystone price, you have to consider that this is going to be part of your overhead now as well. I'm going to circle back to the art jury process, I promise. There is also a process with going through wholesale. Sometimes you're in a shop and your stuff doesn't sell. Why? Potentially, it could be that you didn't do your research. You thought it would be a really great connection to have. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. But you want to think about, does their target market match your target market? I have a target market, and I have a couple different people personas that I use. Gladys is one of them. She is the older aunt who loves to buy art for her nieces and nephews. So does she go and shop in those different retail locations? Thinking about if you're a graphic design student, thinking about those potential clients also fits in our art realm as well. Yes, we want to make art for art's sake sometimes, but sometimes paying the bills can be a wonderful thing. So getting your objects into their shops, don't walk in with your stuff. These are also business owners who have schedules and customers coming in. Reach out to them. Tell them via email why you think your product would work really well in their shop. There are consignment shops, there are people that do wholesale, and there are boutique shops. If you're doing consignment, so a perfect example of consignment would be the iHeart Denver store. iHeart Denver does a 60-40 split, which means the artist gets more. This is almost like a wholesale pricing. You're building that price in for your wholesale, but the hitch and the giddy up with consignment is that you have to buy all of your materials up front and give them away to hope that they sell. With consignment, I make an order, I put everything together, and before I ship it out the door, I get paid. So that's the wonderful piece of the puzzle with consignment versus wholesale. There is nothing wrong with consignment, and that's where a lot of people get their start, with seeing how an object might do in a particular market, so that you know what product might go well there. Sometimes some shops are a 70-30 split, meaning 70% goes to the artist, which is rare and nice, but sometimes there are strings attached. This is a screen that I'll touch on a little bit with thinking about your particular business if and when you just want to think about how you're going to market yourself. There are things called line sheets, which it's just another word for catalog. So if this is an avenue that you're thinking of pursuing with a product that you're making, think about having a catalog. It can be a PDF, and that would also be something that you would attach to that email to that potential shop. These are my products. These are the prices of my products. These are the colors that they come in. SKUs, when we walk in and get our Coke, they scan our Coke. Potentially, if you grow large enough, you might have to invest in SKUs yourself. Invoices. Square is a phenomenal product. Taking money from a customer at a booth right on the spot, or you can send an invoice. So that is certainly an option. I'm going to skip over net payments for now, just for time. As I mentioned, when you're going into a shop, don't full-on pitch to them at the moment. Certainly email and follow up. A lot of shop owners have a lot of wholesale clients that they talk to on a monthly basis, or maybe they sit down only on Wednesdays to do their wholesale orders. So think about reaching out a couple times if you don't hear back. Potentially sending samples would be an option to that particular group. There is a resource that I'll point you to. Megan Allman does a Creative Live class. I think it's like 17 hours long on wholesale. So I am just scratching the surface, just kind of planting the seeds on what's out there for wholesale. Okay, well, I have one final note about wholesale. If you're not someone who's comfortable with selling your work, there are people that are wholesale representatives. So if your prices are right for you and your income doing the Keystone pricing, there are people that will write orders for you, and they'll take it's usually a 15% fee for that order. So that's something to think about. They will have a book of business, a lists and lists of stores that they'll work with to get your products into that store so that you don't have to do the work. So all of these options out there exist to help you really make a viable business. The art shows also are a fascinating piece of the puzzle. I thought, I'm just going to sign up for a show and they're going to say, yes, my stuff is awesome, and I'm going to show up and people are going to come and it's going to be great. With art shows, there is a very rigorous jury process. There is a local show here, and it's actually one of the largest in the nation, the Cherry Creek Art Show. They have typically 2,000 artists apply. That's rigorous. That's a lot. So there are people that sit in a dark room and they look at all of these entries. And they do a mock jury. If this is a road that you're interested in, this time of year, and it happened yesterday, this time of year they will do a mock jury, so you can go in a room and watch them go through a jury process. And you can listen to what they have to say about each artist, their work, their photos of what they submitted, and it is a learning experience. So in a jury, your images will be projected on a wall, so similar to this in a dark room, and you usually submit 4 images plus a shot of your booth. They have 1 minute. They go with a gut reaction of yes, no, or maybe, so that you could potentially go to the next round. So whittling down those potentially 2,000 applicants to a show of about 100 to 150 artists who show at that show. So it's a gut reaction. You want to make the first impression the best impression. The seminar class, has a section on photographing your work. And that's a very quick and dirty photographing your work segment. There are people that will photograph your work for you if this is the path that you would want to take, and you might not be the best person to set up a light box or a room to take your picture of your work. You want to make sure that each background is the same. Make sure that there's nothing distracting. How do your pieces look next to one another? Potentially bookend if you have landscape versus portrait-sized images. And then the booth shot is there for scale. They want to see what the user experience is going to be when they walk into your booth, as well as like, I have an image that's 12 by 12 and an image that's 6 by 6. Projected on the wall, nobody knows what that size is. So the booth shot will be able to show scale of pieces sitting next to each other. You also don't want your logo or anything that's identifying that will take you out of the jury process. If they know who you are, then it's not a blind jury anymore. So this is what that room looks like. Here are the works projected on screens. It's a dark room. The people might be taking some notes, and basically they say, application number 172, yes, no, maybe, to get you to the next round. And each one of these persons scores how they feel about the work. So this is how I have my 4 images. All of mine are square, which is great. So we really can't tell the specific dimensions of the 3 pieces. And I chose to include a close-up. My work is layered. And at a first glance, that might not be something that can really be defined. So I have a close-up. This is one of those things where that mock jury is really helpful. There were some jurors who said, no, don't do it. And then there were some juries who said, yes, do it. And it's really interesting to understand why they're saying it. So that's how that mock jury can be really helpful. You can pause them during that jury and ask questions. And then it's also really interesting to see what the jurors have to say about other people's work and how that could apply to you or not apply to you. I have several potential options depending on like how I'm feeling or where the show is going to be. I might do a different set based on whether it's an urban environment or a mountain town. This is the grouping that I used in 2017, and that was a picture of my booth. I have the ability on this, there's a website that almost every show and their mother uses. It's called Zapplication. They're based here in Denver, actually, which is kind of a nice thing. You can swap these around as you so choose. I don't like to keep the purples next to each other. These two are kind of taller. This is what I used for this past year, and a different booth shot. And I think I have a screen that has these a little bit more enlarged. Yes, okay. So the one on the left was the first booth shot I ever took. It's horrendous. And I didn't know, so give yourself grace as you learn the process. I had no idea. Like, there's other booths that you can see behind my booth. We don't want that. The tablecloths, hello, wrinkles, no wrinkles. The next year I got a little wiser, but sometimes you just have to get the shot and move on. The cords drive me nuts, but it's a huge step forward. So this banner previously had my logo. My logo is up in the top right over here, but I took the name out, so it's kind of cleansing it for no name there. And then this is what I used for the last year. Most booth shots, they want you to have the three walls. You do not have to shoot it head on. It's really an interesting migration of how there's a Facebook group of art jury image evaluation where people post, hey, critique me on X, Y, and Z. And this is now the trend. Who knew there was a trend in booth shots? This is it. As I look at it now, this is not really how I set my booth up. I have tables in my booth. So there's people that say, like, you want to have as least amount of distraction as possible. I agree with that, but for my next year's shot, I'm going to be putting my tables back in. But I have small objects that need to be counter height. Here are some pictures of other booths. So I tried to get some that had different media. This, of course, is like a 2D artist. They have bins in their booth. They've got the table height for the back with some easels. This one on the right is certainly, 3D pieces. This is totally staged, because if you were walking into this booth at an art show, those stanchions would be on the walls so that you have all the foot space. These are all angled in, so it's kind of that sleight of hand for when juries are looking at that booth shot. They can see what the work is versus how it would be set up at a show. So you can kind of wiggle it a little bit in the camera. Here's some, jewelry is certainly one of the largest categories at art shows that fills up the fastest. Thinking about how you would engage that customer, a lot of times for booth shots, the large images are there to have something on the walls, so to speak, for jewelers, or if you do make something that's a smaller piece. This is definitely a shot that has a lot of editing done to it here on the left. So something to consider if you're handy with Photoshop. And again, the idea for these shots is for the jury to understand the scale of your work. Okay, so business. If you're launching your business in the next couple years after graduation, you have to be street legal, which means there's the whole state of Colorado that wants to make sure that it gets paid. But there's also having the income and managing your income, as well as marketing to your customers, potential customers, previous customers. So that fits under operations, marketing, management, and financials. So to be street legal here in Colorado, you do need to register your business. There are many different types of legal business entities, and I am not a lawyer. So you will have to do the research on what type of business you're going to create. There's LLCs, there's S-corps, sole proprietor. And this is how you deal with your taxes, because he takes his share. And as much as you want to damn the man, we can't always damn the man. So potentially having to deal with income tax, as well as when you are making a sale in your booth, you are required to deal with sales tax. Every place in Colorado is a little different, which makes it all so exciting. Denver has sales tax rules. Each county has different sales tax rules. And if you're in a town in a county, sometimes they have their own sales tax rules. So something to consider with regards to interacting with the man. If you are out with your booth and your neighbor has to be like this, happens to be this awesome glass artist, and oops, your tent lifts off the ground and lands on their booth, you're gonna have to pay for it. Or you pay for insurance, which will reimburse the artist. So having insurance is a really great idea. And again, it's one of those things that we don't always, we wanna create, I wanna create. I have to have insurance. I don't want to be the reason why a fellow artist has lost their way to make an income for that weekend. And then business checking account. So that needs to be separate from your personal account. The state of Colorado requires it. So that's always a good thing. You register your state, then you go, or register with the state, then you go to the bank with those incorporation documents, and then you'll be able to open up that business checking account. it's like separation of church and state almost. When I started my business, I didn't know about any of this. So that's why I'm kind of like planting the seeds for when you all get there. Okay, so I'm going to just define what those terms mean a little bit. What do you do in the day of your life of your business? Certainly you want to create a painting or finish a portrait that you've been commissioned to make. Do you need to do some social media to drum up some interest? How do you structure your day? Or maybe it's not your day, but your week that you structure. On Monday, I'm going to sit down and schedule all of my social media. On Tuesday and Wednesday are networking days, and I'm going to go talk to people and be inspired. I'm going to take my trip to the museum. And then Thursday and Friday are my days in my studio. Maybe you have more days in your studio, or you just work 24/7, which is also an option. Sleeping is good though. And then your Saturday and Sunday could be spent at your art show. So when are you going to take time for yourself? Thinking about how you run your business. Marketing is how you find the people that are going to buy your work. I will always recommend the Denver Library has Business Boost. So when you get there, when you're ready to figure out who your target market is, Denver Public Library has the Biz Boost research librarians that will help you. And I bet Martha knows who to talk to over there. And she might be able to help you here too, because we have a great library. So then, management. What is making you successful? When you go to a show, you realize, my moose sells every frickin' time. So do I want to take one moose? No, I probably want to take like 5. So thinking about what's going to make you some more money. The hummingbird that I showed previously, that frickin' thing all the time. So I need to remember to like make 5. And this weekend is a big show, and I probably should have 7. But I'll do that tonight. So, and that's me knowing this Colorado market. People are obsessed with frickin' hummingbirds. I don't know what it is, but whatever. And that's a personal conversation you have to have about where you want to make your passion and then make things that make money. So, things to potentially track. How do I act on it? Being prepared for those shows that are coming up. So this show that I'm doing this weekend is a 3-day show, and it's holiday time. It's go time. This is the time of the season where I make the most money. So, what should I make more of? What should I put on social media? Maybe the fact that I'm going to be at a show should go on my social media. Have I done that yet? No. Don't beat yourself up too much. And then finally, the bottom line question, is your business making money? So hopefully it is. Hopefully you upgrade from ramen to spaghetti. That is my hope. Hey, maybe it's lasagna. Oh, yeah. Thank you. It hurt me as an undergrad and as a grad student. No one spoke to me about business. And so that's why I wanted to share a little bit about that with you. I had to go and take another class. There are places in the Denver metro area and other areas that have classes. And I know we're not there yet. We still have to get through, refining our technique. But I certainly want to urge you, if this is something that you're interested about and it doesn't make sense to you, go ahead and take a class. There are Creative Live, I had mentioned before, they have classes online. There's a local nonprofit called RMMFI, Rocky Mountain Microfinance, that gives you a 16-week program. There's also the Small Business Association of Denver that has mentor opportunities. So I did this boot camp, learned what I needed to learn so that I could hit the ground running with my business. Maybe when you make money, which I hope will be soon, you can delegate some of this stuff. I have an accountant because that is not my jam to do the financials. So there are people that are experts in other things that you can potentially unload that to. So I talked fast. I know that I covered a lot of ground. I will take a moment and just poll the group to see if there's any questions or if I can loop back to anything. Yes.
I'm going to have you use the mic just so we can get it up for time. And
Perfect.
go for it. He's
Oh, yeah.
his thought.
All right. This is
Yeah,
It's on.
It's just
Okay.
recording it online so they can
Okay.
hear you. Yeah.
So like if you have like something that you're making that has like stagnant time, like you have these laser cutting things, if you have something that like takes like 20 minutes, do you calculate that into like how much time you're spending on it?
If
Or is
you're
it not?
doing it, so I can fill my time pretty darn easily because I stamp the back of my work. So that is certainly time that needs to be accounted for. My time's not free. So the lacing takes time. What I do, this is kind of one of those weird little things. Like when you're sitting in your booth, that is your time. And I will take a stack of work that's unstitched and I will sit in my booth and stitch my work. That way I'm busy. I'm also creating interest because, oh man, these people don't understand that this is stitched. And I can't tell you. So I have about 10 pieces that are knitted. And they love to touch the knitted pieces. And they say, do you knit? So then I've started knitting in my booth, which creates more conversations. So I keep myself busy somehow, some way. And here's the tip. Charge like a lawyer. The lawyer is on the phone with you. He's charging you for that time. If he's doing a Google search for you, he's charging you for that time. So my time doing anything should be accounted for monetarily, which I think for us artists is really hard to accept. I don't know why, but it is. Charge like a lawyer.
You'd mentioned earlier a video that had about 17 hours worth of content in it, but you didn't say who that was, did you?
Oh, so it was on the presentation. It was Megan Allman
Okay.
and her Creative Live class about wholesale.
Okay, so it is Creative Live.
Correct.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you tell me more about the transition you made from like doing mostly graphic design for clients to deciding I want to run a business? Like, was it scary? And how did you overcome those fears?
Gosh, that is a phenomenal question. Girl, right? So it was absolutely scary. Absolutely scary. I had a very comfortable position when I was in Maryland at the accounting firm. And I loved that opportunity. And I will always champion students in graphic design professions to maybe corporate art isn't the sexy thing to do, but I had a really great position and life and all that good stuff. And then I came to the conclusion that Colorado was where I wanted to be, and so I was able to transition fairly easily. But life just has a way of... so the layoffs weren't fun. I had some struggle, but I knew that I was motivated by something that I was passionate about. And yeah, I went from a really great salary to being a starving artist. But you chip away at it, and I was happy which maybe there were certain things I wasn't so happy about being in a corporate environment. And now I get to dictate everything about what I'm doing with my life. And if it's not making me rich right now, I'm okay with that because I'm motivated by my passion. There's two things that I'll say. Like, if I needed to make money, I could make a sandwich. Like, I have not yet had to do it, but I have a skill set. Or if I had to like make somebody a logo, like I have those skill sets. I bridge the gap because I teach. So that also helps me because the art show circuit is feast or famine. Like right now, like I said, holiday is go time. And this will carry me through June because I don't do shows January through June. It is not profitable for me. It is a waste of my time and energy. So I have things to help buoy me. And if that's like making the sandwich through January through June, or, you know, not making a sandwich, but doing working in an office, doing what you need to do and having your creative outlet as you increase your business, either via wholesale or doing the shows. So I have had some of those positions before I started teaching with RMCAD online. I worked at another school doing tech support. So you have skill sets that you can help manage. And most artists, I would say most artists do have something that pads that year-round ebb and flow of income.
Cool.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have to wrap up so people can get to class. Can we give it up for Jess Moore? I learned so much. Oh my gosh, this was helpful for me. A couple of reminders. Sorry, I have to stand over here. My director's telling me. Thanks, Jess. So join us next week. We have another Wayfinding speaker. This time it's going to be an alum. Luke Flowers will be presenting next Thursday, November 14th, back here in the library at 1:30. He's an illustrator, so we're excited to have Luke back on campus to talk about what he's been up to since graduating. And then, of course, next Tuesday we have the next visiting artist for the VASD program pattern series. Sarah Zwinar will be talking about her work at 6:30 in the Mary Harris Auditorium on the 12th. And yeah, we'll see you at all those events. Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks again to Jess.